ready to go. On the Fan, New York Sports Radio. Mike's on, Mike's on. He'll get you the sports any way that he can. It's Mike Francesa on the Fan. Sports Radio 66 and 101.9 FM, WFAN.
From the studios of WFAN, this is Mike's on Francesa on the Fan on this Tuesday, the 28th day of November, as we finish up this month and head towards December in the next couple of days and count down the shows. 14 left as we hit this Tuesday. A lot to do, including, as we mentioned, that Football Sunday show I will do at Mulcahy's on the 10th. One amendment to that, and it has to do with the Giants and the Cowboys to a lesser extent. But their game in the flex portion of the NFL schedule has been relegated to 1 o'clock. Imagine a Cowboy-Giant game being relegated to 1 o'clock. It has been taken from the 4 o'clock window to the 1 o'clock window, which will change our show from 9 to 12 to 9 to 11:30 because the Giant pregame will start at 11:30 that day. So that's on the 10th. The Cowboy game will now start at 1. Now, if you were going to go to the game after the show, that might amend your morning a little bit, those of you who are thinking of such things. But otherwise, that's the only change. The show will end at 11:30, and then at 11:30, I'll start with anything I need to do from photos and everything else. I'll start at 11:30 rather than now noon, because we'll finish the show up then. So it'll be 9 to 11:30 that morning, with the Giants now moving. Another cold slap for the Giants and the Cowboys, who have seen their season completely dissipate as they get ready for this Thursday night for the Redskins to go there and probably, or attempt to anyway, put the final nail in the Cowboy coffin. There's nothing left of the division, but put the final nail in the wild card coffin, which they could do this weekend, this Thursday, when the Redskins and the Cowboys meet. The winner will be breathing, the loser will not, especially in a NFC where you have teams like Atlanta and Seattle at 7-4, and teams that are going to be very, very tough, and are going to be very feisty the rest of the way. It's going to take 10 wins to get into the NFC playoffs. That's pretty much a foregone conclusion, the way these things go. It might take 10 in a tiebreaker this year. That's just the way it is in what is a highly competitive NFC behind the big teams that are there. So that's where we are as we head towards another week of NFL football. And as we said, one more little slap towards the Giants in a year where there will be plenty as they continue to muddle is the word through this year with their offense just in a really almost in slow motion and just trying to finish the season out. The Knicks fall to the Blazers last night, try to get a fourth quarter rally. They've done that a lot this year. Didn't do it against a team they've had trouble with and a player they don't match up with. But again, they got way behind last night and then tried to make it close and couldn't. That's just the way it goes. Guys like Lillard are always going to give the Knicks fits. That's just the way it is. And the Knicks, who have had a very good schedule because of the home games, they're really not going to pay that price until January. There is a part, I think, right around January 12th, where after that, they are going to be on the road extensively, and they're going to have some brutal games on the road, and their schedule is going to sink. So they have to be ahead of the game in the next month or so, because by that time, and the schedule doesn't get crazy until then, but then it just gets absolutely murderous. And that's when they're going to pay for the fact that they have played 13 games at home and only 7 games on the road. That's been the way it is. But the Knicks now fall to 500 off last night's poor performance. Really lousy first half. And for one of the few times, really not a lot of effort on the defensive end of the floor and a bad night shooting the ball. And then they did try to make a comeback last night in the fourth quarter. Did try to see if they could pull something or at least get things interesting, but again, fell as we get ready for that. Kansas City comes to town this week, limping in, and Revis will be with them, so that will be at least a little bit interesting. Jets sticking with McCown. It shouldn't surprise you. They're not going to at this juncture yet, They're going to probably get to 9 losses before they go to the kids. I didn't think it would happen at 7. I don't think anybody should have thought it was going to happen at 7. It was going to happen at 9. It's not going to happen at 7. And whenever they do get to 9, and if they don't get to 9, you'll see them count all year. But if they can finish 8-8, they'll do it. If they can, and they probably won't do that. But if they can get a couple of wins under their belt more, they're going to take them. And when that number hits 9 in the L, on the right-hand ledger, when it hits 9, I think you'll see the other quarterback play. And that's where I think otherwise I think you're going to have to be patient. As the Chiefs come to town to take on the Jets this week, Revis will be with them, but their problem is they cannot run the ball anymore. Their running game and their offensive line have completely dissipated, which has cost Alex Smith dearly, and he'll come here and hope it's not another windy day, because the last time he did, he couldn't throw the ball, and he's not been throwing the ball well lately after not being picked off all year. He has made up for that in recent weeks. A terrible interception late in the game on Sunday cost them against the Bills, and cost me too, because it means I have to go to the NFL to Schrager's show one of these mornings in the next couple of weeks. I got to find a date that we can do it, because I said to him, every week when I have him on, I have him pick an upset, and he picked 2 last week, but he picked the Bills, and I said, "You're talking about." We were just talking about the points, right? He said, "No, remember?" He said, "If you were listening," he said, "No, straight up." And I said, "What are you? They're not going to beat them straight up. I mean, you got to figure the Chiefs are going to rebound in this game against the Bills, who had been just falling apart the last 3 weeks." And no, he said, "I think the Bills are going to win," and he was right. They did. They shut down the Chiefs running game completely. And when he could have won the game late, Smith threw a bad pick, and their rally fell short, as a lot of their rallies have in recent weeks. As their rally did against the Giants in regulation before they lost. So the Chiefs have really hit the skids. Things have completely fallen apart for Andy Reid and his crew, which had such a fast start to the season. And that means I have to go visit the program on the NFL Network very early one of these mornings. So I got to work that out. But that's an early morning. I guess they start like 6. They're on at 6 or 7. Which one are they on, Mons? They start at 6. They start at 7. They start at 6.
7 o'clock.
They start at 7 o'clock. Okay, all right. Well, it's not as early as I thought. All right, so they're on 6 to 10 or 6 to 9.
7 to 10.
Oh, 7 to 10 they're on. Okay, so it's not. Oh, I thought that was a 4-hour show. So it's a 3-hour show. All right, so they're not working as hard as I thought. So it's a 3-hour show, 7 to 10. And one of these days, I have to go over and do it. I'm going to pick a day later today, and we'll go over and do one of those shows for him. Since I have to pay up for his being accurate on that prediction, and he's done pretty well with his upsets this year. He's had a couple of clunkers, but so has everybody else. And he and I both liked Arizona last week, and he liked the Bills also. So he was right on both of them last week. We have some interesting games this week. There's a couple of games I think are interesting. I think the Eagles and Seahawks is interesting. The Eagles are going to be interesting the next 2 weeks. They're going to stay out west. They play the Seahawks and they play the Rams. And you're going to learn a lot about this team these next 2 weeks, because these are 2 teams that can test them on the road, how they go about handling their prosperity against teams that are going to need the game. The Seahawks desperately need the game to try and make the playoffs. It's not an easy fight for them. Then they'll play the Rams, who obviously have division title dreams in their head right now. They're going to stay out west, which is the right move in between. So we'll see how the Eagles handle these 2 weeks. And then I want to see if the Bengals can actually rally and get to 500 against the Steelers. The Steelers, when you look at that from a division standpoint, the Steelers are in fine shape. But the Steelers right now have aspirations of being the number 1 seed, that they can, pretty much run the table, beat New England, be the 1 seed, and have New England have to come back. As you already heard Mike Tomlin say, that they're the only 2 teams that are going to play in the AFC title game. The only question is where. You've already heard them already commit to that, a little early for that, but he already did before the game last week. And a game they just pulled out against the Packers. But that game interests me because I think the Bengals, on their best day, if they can protect their quarterback, which they've done intermittently this year, and keep him from throwing those terrible interceptions that he's so prone to throw in big games, they have enough players to give the Steelers trouble. So that's going to be an interesting game. The Steelers are playing in Cincinnati on Monday night. The Bengals, if they get to 6-6, still have a chance So they're not out of it yet. So those two games, Eagles and Seattle on Sunday night, Steelers and Bengals on Monday night, they interest you a lot more than, say, the Cowboys and the Redskins on Thursday night. Now, we know where the Cowboy fans are everywhere, but right now, you can't be too thrilled about what you're seeing as these teams. The Redskins kept their hopes alive against the Giants. They'll have had, a good rest as they get, and so have the Cowboys. So they both are going to be well rested for the game, at least more than they would normally be, since they did have Sunday off. So they've gotten, at least a week to prepare here since Thanksgiving. And they will meet in Dallas. Now, Washington's banged up themselves, so it's not like they aren't, but the Cowboys, since the losses that they've suffered have just completely destroyed their season, as we have seen, where they've been pretty much, awful in recent weeks. So you have those games which are interesting. You got a couple of others that aren't bad either. And you're going to start to see these games in the South, which are going to be great in the NFC South, because the Falcons, who this week get the Vikings, then come back on Thursday night and play the Saints. So they're going to have 2 home games in 4 days, which are going to define their season. If they're 9-4 on next Thursday night, they really have a chance to have a very big finish. You have the Saints and the Panthers playing. So you are going to have so many good games in that division the rest of the way, where you have Atlanta at 7-4 and New Orleans and Carolina at 8-3. That's going to be really fun to watch. And as we talked about, Atlanta pretty much is in a playoff run right now. 4 of their 5 games are against teams that are either 8-3 or 9-2. So they are really just have to put the pedal to the metal and just play it like every game is an elimination game the rest of the way, because for them it kind of is, and see if they can just power their way right into the playoffs and take it from there, because they could be a very dangerous team. You saw some of that last week, and I think they're starting to get their act together offensively, and they still, to me, have the most talent of any of the teams if they can just get that offense on the right page, which you started to see. Now, they don't have everybody healthy, which we know, but nobody else does either. So it'll be interesting to see, starting this Sunday, Vikings at the Falcons, and then the Falcons and the Saints. And then, of course, you got the Saints and Carolina, and you have the Eagles and the Seahawks. So you're going to get some interesting games there in the NFC right off the bat. The Giants will be playing the Raiders, which won't be any fun, and the Jets will be hosting Revis and the Chiefs, which could be kind of interesting to see just how far the Chiefs have fallen, and whether or not what was a nightmarish appearance for Alex Smith in New York just 2 weeks ago, if that nightmare reoccurs against the Jets coming up this week. So that's where we are. I got a lot to get to today. Busy show, as we told you. We will sprinkle these guests in throughout the next couple of days. Today, it's Andy Pettit who will join us at 4 o'clock. Before that, Mike Holmgren, Brian Billick. So we got a lot to do, and we'll get it all rolling right after this.